All right, welcome back. We are starting off with a fan question. What kind of drills do you do to warm up your hips and lower body before a round? I mean, there's so many different answers to this. For me personally, I always like to feel like I can sense the separation of my upper body and lower body in the golf swing first before I get going. So what I like to do, I like to set up like I'm over the golf ball. I grab a club and I lay it across my shoulders and I have my arms in like an X. So I have my right hand over on my left shoulder, my left hand on my right shoulder, and I'm holding that club on my shoulders. From there, I just rotate my upper body just to see what my mobility is first, and then I rotate my lower body with it. And then once I can feel that coil and the difference between my upper body and lower body, because in the golf swing they don't move at the same time, right? So just making sure that mobility exercise helps see what kind of rotation I have going on between the upper body and lower body, and it really helps loosen up the hip flexors. One thing to keep in mind is every part of our lower body is kind of connected. So if your hamstrings are tight, if your quads are tight, it's going to affect your hips, it's going to affect your lower body, it's going to affect your golf swing. So making sure you just do some standard hamstring stretches, standard quad stretches, stretch out those ankles too. Can't stress it enough. If you have footwork like Scotty Scheffler, you're going to need to warm up those ankles. I have seen some boo-boos out there, so making sure every part of your lower body's warmed up, but I definitely think some mobility exercises, and there's a lot of great of references online of where you can look up what best exercises suit you as well. But I like that one where I can have that club on my shoulders and work on my golf swing movements without actually swinging the club. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, and you know, speaking of online references, there's a lot of great articles about stretching on PGA.com. So I think it's important for the hips. That's an important part of your golf swing. So what I like to do is do a little bit of a split stance, have a knee on the ground, have one other knee kind of 90-degree angle, and just try to work out those hips a little bit, move forward a little bit, move back, maybe stick my foot up to trying to get the calves and stuff. And you know, as we move over here to Yuka Saso and her warm-up, I think, you know, what Abby said, those stretches are great, you know, the one that I referenced to, but you know, PGA.com has a lot of articles. We talked to a lot of golf coaches, PGA coaches who are also fitness coaches, and I think it's important to go to the experts with the stretches. So don't try anything that'll get you hurt, that's for sure. Absolutely, and the player that we saw before, Danielle Kang, she stretched longer than she actually hit balls, so that tells you how important it is. But yes, I was looking at Yuka Saso. She's also warming up with wedges, abbreviated finishes. She's starting, her tee time is at 1:55, so we're just about an hour out. So this is a great routine. Being here about an hour before your tee time, I think, is ideal. You don't feel rushed. You have time to warm up your body. I applaud trunk slammers for being able to do what they do, and they're able to show up and just tee off, but I don't recommend it, not only for your body, but for your golf swing. It helps your mentality too. Being on the driving range an hour early, she has time to get into her game mode as well. As you can see, she's getting a distance measuring device out, trying to get those wedge yardages dialed in before she heads out there. But no, I think this is a great way to start for her. Past U.S. Open champion, I mean, that's the hardest test in golf, and here she is, hoping for a good week at the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. Yep, no doubt. And you know, Yuka, I've always admired her swing because it's very fundamentally sound. She has, you might actually see a lot of comparisons from her swing to Rory McIlroy, and I think that is actually something that a lot of people can follow, is that fundamentals start the swing first, right? And you can see here on the takeaway, she's looking, you know, like right for where she needs to be. And I think it's important that the takeaway and then the top, you see that. That's on a little bit fat from over here, but they're human. Yeah, they're human, right? And so I think, you know, watching Yuka swing is a great, like a master class in fundamentals, right? And Abby, I don't know if you want to add anything about what you see too. Oh, absolutely. I mean, on top of that, as we were just talking about routine as well, she's teeing off with Lexi Thompson, and Lexi is not on the driving range. There are so many different ways that you can attack your routine before you play. Lexi might be putting, she might be stretching with a trainer, she might be getting a game plan with her yardage book. There's so many different ways that you can warm up your body and mind before you tee off. It's not just hitting balls. So Lexi could have been in here an hour ago already putting, chipping, and whatnot, but just making sure that you stick to your routine, because everyone's different. Playing college golf,
all of us had a different routine, and so it made it super fun for timing purposes. But it is very important to, once you have your routine, stick to it. And Ryan, like you were saying, fundamentally, I mean, she is it. If I have students that are trying to work on just basic fundamentals, not only tempo, but her takeaway and set position at the top are just phenomenal, and they're super consistent. And they're basically, if you asked AI to make a perfect golf swing, it would probably look like hers.
That's right, yeah. And you saw there just like kind of a little bit of a takeaway and then a little bit of like a half finish on the other side. So what she's trying to do is figure out like where am I at in the backswing, and then where am I at in the follow through, right? And like if you can kind of master that zone, you've got a good chance at making a good strike. And so I think what's the most important thing we can learn from Yuka most likely is right there, takeaway and then follow through, right? You can see on her follow through, she's got her hips turned through, she's making a good move down and using that lower body to lead. And you'll see here that, you know, when she's dialed in, I mean, there's no one really better to watch, and she can really move it off the tee and throughout the bag. So
absolutely, and what we can take a look at here is the top tracer. Shows you so much information, and this is information that these players like to focus on too as well within their own routines and when they practice before prepping for a major championship. If you have any questions, not only about Yuka but about your own golf swings, we're happy to answer them, so please be sure to leave a question in the comment section below. But take a look at that top tracer. You can see that their consistency is definitely awe-inspiring, and it shows the importance of also something as simple as having a target when you practice.
Yes.
It is, you see these players just go for the same pin with different clubs. It is very important to also change your targets along the way as you go through your golf bag. Your body gets a little bit too used to aiming at something, and it can mess some things up, something as simple as that. So just making sure you're changing your targets, you're having targets, because can't stress it enough, aiming in the middle means nothing. So once you're on the golf course, you have targets, and so everything you just practice on the driving range is just completely out the door. But like you said, Yuka and her takeaway is just absolutely perfect. I mean, she's a past U.S. Open champion. She's somebody definitely to look for this weekend. I think this course will set up nicely for her. I think she's got some power too behind her as well. It's hard to tell with that smooth tempo, but she can still get it out there. But yeah, I completely agree with everything you said about her golf swing as well.
Yeah, too, and you know, you can see, you know, she's aligned really well too, and that alignment is as important as it gets when it comes to the wedges, right? And then also throughout your bag. But I think sometimes, like you were saying, Abby, sometimes with different clubs, people tend to forget where they're aiming, right? And so I think I like that she's kind of starting out making sure she's lined up right. Where's my target? You can see this is a good thing people should do at home, right? Go behind the golf ball. Where's my target? Look at the target again, make sure I'm aimed properly, right? Like I'm making sure that my golf ball is going to where I'm aimed, because if it's not, it's going to be pretty hard to play golf. And so, you know, Yuka is obviously a KPMG ambassador, and you know, kind of one of these rising stars in the game. So I think it'll be really fun to watch how she can tackle Fields Ranch. First time she's ever played here, like everyone else. This is a first-time KPMG Women's PGA Championship venue, and so I think if I had to guess, I feel like Fields Ranch is a good fit for Yuka. So we'll see how she does this afternoon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've been really enjoying. She's been playing really good golf recently, and it's been fun to watch. I mean, a two-time U.S. Open champion. Can't stress it enough. That's incredible. Some things these players are probably keeping in mind, as we mentioned earlier, it is still pretty breezy out here. Now standing outside, and it's a little bit toasty, not going to lie. I could appreciate a little bit more wind, but as a golfer, I'm sure that they're hoping it dies down. But I can definitely see she's starting to work on some flighted shots as well. Working on different heights for their ball flights is going to be super beneficial, because this property is absolutely massive. They're going to have a bunch of different wind directions when they set up to different tee boxes, so I think it's going to be very important for her to keep practicing with those flighted shots before she heads out there.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, you know, she's moving over to a different target here on the right side of the range, and again, working on that takeaway. But it's actually not just the takeaway now, it's kind of a little bit of the takeaway and the backswing, right? And I think, you know, when we think about the backswing, we haven't really talked about this a lot today, but you always want to make a full turn on your backswing, right? And I think when we watch Yuka swing here, even with the wedge, she's making a full turn, right? And I think if you want to get as much power as possible out of your swing, and you want to be accurate as well, you need to start with that full turn, right? And a full turn you know, if you maybe are unfamiliar with that, what that feels like is your back is pointed towards the target, right? And if maybe you can't get that far, it's as far back as you can get your back to the target, right? And you might be, you know, if you don't have as much mobility, or if you maybe struggle a little bit with range of motion, just try to get back as far as possible. You can always use, you know, having your chin underneath your lead shoulder is another good marker for a full turn. But I think it's important, you'll see that a lot today on the range, is players trying to make sure that they go to the top and I got a full turn before I turn down through the swing, right? And if they don't, then they're trying to figure out why. But a lot of them have great fundamentals and a great, you know, sense of their golf swing. So you'll see that a lot here on the range. But it's a thing that a lot of amateurs struggle with, so I think it's important to call that out.
Absolutely. If you have any questions about the turn or rotating or anything like that, please be sure to have them in the comment section below. We are happy to answer your questions. One thing to keep in mind when you're focusing on that turn and your rotation is making sure you're not leaving the golf ball when you turn. What I mean by that is you can have the biggest turn ever, but if your spine is leaving the golf ball, if you're starting to sway away from the golf ball because you're focusing too much on getting that deep rotation, an easy way to work on that is get an alignment stick, stick it right in front of you into the ground so it's vertical, and I always like to imagine an imaginary string tied to that alignment stick and is also tied to my spine. If I can see that there would be that tug of that string with that alignment stick, that means I am leaving the golf ball too much. So you want to make sure your spine is lined up with that alignment stick. You're not swaying away from the golf ball while still getting that really important turn that Ryan was talking about.
Yep, yeah, no doubt. Now it looks like we're getting to a little bit of a longer club, maybe working into the irons, and I think, you know, irons and shot making and shot shaping today are going to be really important, and, you know, Yuka knows that as well as anyone. You know, obviously won a couple U.S. Opens, you know, has the pedigree to know how to attack major championship golf courses, and so I want to call this out there right there. I think a lot of the times people will just get to their ball, get out of their cart, grab their club, and just hit the ball, right? And yeah, that's great for pace of play, but it doesn't really, and you can see there, I want to talk about this quick, is that motion she's doing right there. She's trying to rehearse the proper downswing, right? Like how my hips are leading the swing, but my hands are coming down, they're kind of getting right into the slot and being squared up at impact. So that's what you saw there, a little bit of a pump drill, so to speak, is to try to make sure that she's in the right spot on the downswing. But when she goes behind the golf ball, I think that's something interesting to call out, because a lot of times people just rush into the shot and, whatever, I'm on to the next one, right? You got to make sure you visualize where you're going. And I think sometimes when you can step behind the golf ball and just see the shot, envision the shot, I actually like to look at a piece of grass or a marker or something 3 yards in front of me, and then align that with my target out in the distance. And that's a good way to kind of make sure you're lined up right and visualize where you're going. And visualization is important for a lot of these players because they got pretty good golf swings, but they need to make sure they know where they're going, right? And so visualizing a golf shot, getting in a good frame of mind, and then entering the batter's box, so to speak, before they hit is something I really recommend.
Absolutely. We do have a fan question. Does hot weather benefit a golf swing? Great question. Right now, as we're standing here soaking up the humidity, I would say it benefits absolutely nothing, but yes, it does. Warm weather definitely helps your body. It helps you warm up a little bit faster. When you're shivering in the cold, your body's tensing up. Everything's more tense just to try to stay warm. So yes, warm weather does benefit that. Now, if you want to get super technical, we could talk about humidity versus dry heat. Dry heat the ball's going to go a little bit further. The air is not as dense. Humidity, the ball's not going to travel as far. Now, I don't think it'll play a major role here. I think if anything, for weather conditions this weekend, they're going to be focused more on the wind, but definitely that heat is going to help them keep their body warm and mobile during their round. Because like I said, if you're shivering, if you're cold in a round of golf, you're just tensing up your body is tensing just to stay a little bit warmer. So it definitely is beneficial. It's beneficial for mobility, it's beneficial for stretching, and yes, I definitely think that weather can make a difference, not only with your golf swing, but with how far the ball travels as well.
Yeah, and I will say that you can't take advantage of the benefits of hot weather that Abby listed out without being properly hydrated and stretched out, right? So if you go out and it's in the 90s here today, fairly humid, got a little bit of a breeze, but if you went out and were like, well, it's warmer, it's more humid, I'll be fine, I don't need to stretch, or I don't need to bring water, like I'm all good, you're not going to get any of the benefits of the added mobility or like maybe a little bit extra distance with the heat. So making sure you're properly hydrated, have a couple bottles of water, maybe a Gatorade or you know, some sort of hydration packs or whatever to make sure that you're constantly rehydrating and making sure that you're in peak performance, because if you're not, and then you start to get a little dehydrated, and then your swing speed starts to slow down, and then things kind of unravel from there, right? So hot weather, yep, it can definitely help your game, but you got to be in the right, you got to have the right tools to make sure you can succeed in it too.
Yeah, you might be wondering, okay, but if it's so warm and muggy, why should you be wearing pants and sleeves? These players out here, they really prioritize sun protection, and we can't stress enough, it is super important. Those sleeves, they're very cooling. I wear them a lot at work. I work in Scottsdale, Arizona, so those are part of my daily outfits. Those sun sleeves, they help with UV protection, but they also kind of cool your arms down as well. Same thing with pants, just completely covers, just to make sure you don't get sunburnt or any sun damage. And the technology these days with clothing is just off the charts. So they're not going to be dying out there wearing pants, don't worry. It's going to be totally fine for them. But they're working on not only keeping their body nice and cool and warm and whatever temperature they like, but protecting themselves from the sun as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yeah, and you see Yuka's got the sun sleeves and probably some moisture wicking and UV protection in her clothing, and so I think, you know, you'll see that a lot today out on Fields Ranch East. But yeah, kind of getting back into her swing a little bit is now she's working up into an iron, and I like her grip. You know, it's very solid, right? And you have to make sure that when your grip is the biggest thing with your grip is making sure that it's in a good spot. So something to focus on with Yuka is that grip and making sure she's got a little bit of a stronger grip. Some people do a little bit more of a weaker grip, but making sure it's in a good place and you're confident with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And having this routine, and as we talked about earlier, her working on those body motions and practicing and rehearsing what she's working on right now is super beneficial for her. I agree, she does have a bit of a strong grip. I'm not anti-strong grip at all. Also, as a PGA coach, the most uncomfortable thing to change for a golfer is a grip.
Yes.
However, if you have too weak of a grip, too strong of a grip, that will change your club face at takeaway. It will change your club face at the top of your swing. Obviously, it will change the club face as you strike the ball as well. So it's super important that, yes, if you have a little bit of an off grip, that's fine. Just making sure it is still beneficial to you and making sure it is not what is affecting the ball flight. If you have any misses going on as well. It is very uncomfortable. We are fully aware of changing the grip. The grip is the only thing that connects us to the club, so we are fully aware that it is not fun to change, but if it is a needed change, then please do it.
Yep, yeah, and I like how she keeps doing the same. That sounded extremely pure.
Sounded so good. You could hear, I mean, there's so many players on the range, you could hear that one.
That's, I think, one of the cool things about her swing is that she's always been like a really good ball striker, right? There's not much that really upsets the apple cart as far as her swing goes, and that goes down to, you know, good fundamentals and doing the same things, the same motions to try to feel the right things, right? And so I think, you know, the most important thing with Yuka is you can see her doing that same kind of, we'll call it a extra large takeaway, if you will, like it's almost to hip height, and then she comes through that action zone, so to speak, is the most important part of the swing, because that's where you make contact with the ball, right? So making sure that it's good on the backswing and good on the follow through, and you see that a lot with Yuka here on the range.
And now we are switching gears over to one of the more iconic swings in golf. Not the most normal swing you've ever seen, but by gosh, it works. This is Lexi Thompson on the driving range. Most definitely a fan favorite, and in that grouping with Yuka today. So it looks like she's just now getting started with her warm-up, starting with those shorter wedges, getting her swing dialed. I get a lot of questions about Lexi's swing. How is she able to do it? Well, first and foremost is repetition. That girl's been playing golf from a very young age. We saw her at in majors at a very young age as well. So, but she definitely prioritizes using the ground up for her power. I mean, that girl gets airborne most times. So it is definitely a swing that I admire. It is not a swing that I try to replicate myself. There are a lot of great takeaways, absolutely, from her swing, and she can absolutely bomb it. But if anything, what you could take away from her swing is how important it is to utilize that lower body for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And Lexi, you know, is with Yuka and Yealimi Noh. Lexi's a junior PGA champion, and so, as Abby was saying, she's been playing golf for a long time, so she's developed this move. And I think, anytime you think about like, I need to change my swing, right? Like, you don't want to change it too much because this is the swing that you started with, right? So unless you're really dedicated to making a overhaul of your swing, you don't really want to, you don't want to be stuck between two swings, right? And I think, Lexi maybe has found that a few times in her career, but she always has kind of come back to her roots, right? And this is this swing that has a lot of power. As Abby said, she gets a little bit airborne, but it's her swing, right? And I think, as we kind of work our way through the range, you'll see a lot of different swings. The swing that we just saw with Yuka Saso is miles different than Lexi Thompson, but they're both major champions, right? So they know what they're doing. So I think, as we kind of watch Lexi move through the bag here, there's a lot of things we can pick up from her swing, and the most important thing is just making sure that she's stable, right? And although she gets a little bit up on her toes through impact, she makes a good backswing, and she's got a lot of power using that ground, right? And I think if she was unstable in the backswing, it would be unstable throughout the golf swing because she actually gets up on her toes through impact. And so if she wasn't good on the backswing, it would be really, really hard for her to make solid, consistent contact going through the ball. So, we'll see her kind of warm up a little bit here, and you might see her make a few chopped off follow-throughs. She's just probably trying to get a little bit of the flighted ball flight because the wind is picking back up here a little bit. And yeah, it'll be interesting to watch her a little bit here.
Yeah, Lexi's actually currently working with the PGA Coach of the Year, Joe Hallett, or Teacher of the Year. So very impressive to have that PGA representation with Lexi Thompson, one of the most iconic women in golf. And if there's anybody that you want to be watching their top tracer from this week, it's probably Lexi Thompson.
Yes.
I mean, not only from the distance, but with her swing, she still keeps things so consistent. And as you can see, she has a band around her thighs right now, which that can mean a bunch of different things for players, but I think for her, it looks like she's just trying to control that lower body with these shorter shots, trying to keep things a little bit more stable, probably trying not to move too much over the ball, but also it's going to warm up her lower body way faster than if she did not have that on. So maybe she's feeling just a little bit tight with her hips or her lower body, and she just wanted that extra effort in there to get things grooving for the day. But no, I totally agree. I think everything about her swing, it's so fun to watch. A lot more people are heading to the driving range now that Lexi Thompson is here, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And the band that she has around her legs is like a great representation of the proper turn, right? Like a lot of the times people will, if you're working on your turn a little bit, you got to think that you're maybe in like you're wearing a hula hoop, or you're inside of a barrel. That's kind of the reference I always use, is inside of a barrel, and you're trying to turn within that barrel, right? If you move too far to the right, like with your hips, you're going to knock into the right side of the barrel. If you move too far to the left with your hips, you're going to hit this other side of the barrel. So this band that she has around her legs, it helps her focus on making a turn into her body, right? She's working into the ground and using that ground for power and leverage versus swaying back and trying to help the ball up into the air. So you'll see her kind of turn and pivot, and that band is a good helper for her to kind of feel that pivot versus her swaying back. So, and like you said, it's probably warming up her lower body a little bit. So between those two things, I think it's a great range tool. And you can get a band at a sporting goods store or whatever, and just put it on the top of your legs and try that at home. Maybe not with a golf club at first. Maybe just try to focus on a couple practice swings, put your arms across your chest and make a little bit of a turn. But I think anything that has to do with making a good turn and trying to get more power, starting with the band would be a good move. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have any questions about Lexi Thompson's swing or any of the swings that we've seen so far, or about your own golf game, of course, please be sure to leave them in the comment section. We're happy to answer them. But no, when I got here earlier today, I was just watching some swings, and I had two people come up and ask, when Lexi's going to be here. So I think there's so much to learn from her. There's so much to admire about her golf swing. She's been on the tour for quite a long time, and it's awesome to see her out here this weekend. I know she has a little bit more of a limited schedule, but this is one of her favorite events, so it's great to see her take on Fields Ranch East this weekend. With her power, she's going to have a huge advantage. Golf course is going to be playing a little bit long with gettable par fours, so I think with her distance and her history in the game and all of her advantages, I think she's most definitely a player to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And you can see, as we look at her swing a little closer here, she's got a little bit of a stronger grip than Yuka had. But, as we were talking about earlier, the connecting point for your club is with your hands, right? And that's where your grip is. And so that's the only thing connecting you to the club. And so if it's a little bit of a stronger grip or maybe a little bit of a weaker grip, the most important grip is the grip that fits you, not the grip that fits Lexi Thompson or Yuka Saso, right? Like the way you naturally hold the club and the way that you've been working on it with your PGA coach or the way you've been working on it on the range, that's the most important grip to have. So you might see a little bit of a stronger grip with Lexi, maybe a little bit weaker with Yuka or something different. Not necessarily something to copy, but maybe something just to learn from, right? And remember, like, you know, the grip that fits you is the grip that you should be using, so.
Well, the timing of this next question is perfect because we are getting blasted with gusts of winds at the moment. But the next question is, do you have any advice for playing in strong winds? Now, I'd be shocked if you haven't heard this before, but if it's breezy, swing easy. Okay, I cannot stress it enough. A lot of amateurs out there, a lot of golfers out there, they feel the gust of wind and they try to swing a little harder, a little faster to combat it. Do not do that. That is the first no-no with wind play. But also, if you have a shot shaper, if you're a shot shaper on the golf course, trying to figure out your game plan with the wind. Do you want to draw it into the wind? Do you want to cut it with the wind? Like, what would you like to do? Do you want to ride the wind out, or do you want to try to beat it with your ball flight? The next thing, and the most standard thing that people need to keep in mind, is flighting the ball further down when you are into the wind. If you have a high ball flight and you're into the wind, that is not going to be very helpful. That ball is going to stay up in the air for a lifetime. And so what you need to work on is flighting it down, working on those, almost like that punch shot swing. So what I recommend is trying to put that ball a little bit further back in your stance, maybe narrow your stance a little bit to avoid any sort of sway. Try to set up with a little bit more weight forward on that target side foot, and try to have a little bit more compact swing. You know, I'm trying to go almost three-quarter, a little bit more of an abbreviated finish. Always helps me flight the ball a little bit lower, and you will see a lot of those shots this weekend with how this wind is going so far. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I would say, you know, the first thing you said, you know, when it's breezy, swing easy, like, that's a lot harder to do than it sounds.
Yes.
Because when you step up to your ball and you're faced with, you know, a 15, 20 mile an hour wind right into you, you want to swing a little bit harder naturally, and that's okay. Like, Abby and I both do that too. And, you know, I think the most important thing, though, is to focus on taking an extra club and making a controlled, abbreviated swing, right? That can kind of help you avoid swinging harder because you have an extra club. You've choked down a little bit on the grip, and you've made it abbreviated follow through. So you're not trying to crush the ball through the wind. You're just trying to kind of almost send it like into the wind, but with enough power behind it that it's not going to get caught up and spin up into the top of the breeze. So I think, you know, thinking about the swing easy when it's breezy sort of thing, but also make sure that you're armed with the right tools, a longer club, choking down a little bit on the grip, and making sure that you have that abbreviated follow through will help the ball stay a little bit lower and you won't get caught up in that wind. So
absolutely. And something to note for all of you at home, think of how many swings we have seen so far with this live coverage of the range, and how many driver swings we've seen. We have seen so few driver swings, so little driver swings. It just shows how important it is to get those wedges dialed, to get those irons dialed, because it's not all about the driver. You know, it's drive for show, putt for duro. Everybody's heard that, but you can see how important it is that their irons and their wedges are going to play this week. Yes, they're going to need a little bit more juice off the tee for sure with some of these longer holes, but it just goes to show these players are more focused on those shorter swings. They're more focused on the irons to take on Fields Ranch East, and I think a lot of you need to take that with you to home as well. Do not just go on the driving range and pound drivers for hours. It is not beneficial.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And, you know, the thing that we'll see a lot today on the course is finding the fairway. The rough is a little bit thicker around the sides. The greens are undulating and they roll off to the side too. So playing from the fairway is going to be paramount today, because you want to have that short grass so you're able to spin the ball properly, you're able to attack the pins or find the center of the green. Because if you're playing from the rough and you're not playing from, you know, bunkers or the heather or wherever it is out there at Fields Ranch East, you know, it makes things a lot trickier to find the green, and then you can start to add up some big numbers. So, you know, something to think about. You know, if the conditions are a little bit breezier and your driver starts to kind of maybe get a little bit wayward, go down to the 3-wood, go down to a hybrid, go down to, you know, 7-wood has become pretty popular out on the tours. Go down a club and try to focus on hitting the fairway versus trying to power through the wind, because the wind, you know, it's a lot like Father Time. It'll get you at some point, right? So you have to make sure that you're not trying to overpower it. You're just trying to play with it and stay within yourself versus trying to go outside of your game too much.
Yeah, and you saw just a little bit earlier, Lexi was chatting with her PGA coach and teacher of the year, Joe Hallett, and he also coaches Maya Stark, who just won the U.S. Open. So he's got some pedigree with him already.
Yeah.
I mean, working with two of the best players in golf at the moment. But he has mentioned in interviews, you know, getting ready for a major championship isn't starting to get ready on Wednesday. You don't start to prepare for a major championship on Wednesday. We are not trying to cram for an exam. This is a lot of hard work and effort that they're putting into throughout the entire season to gear up for these majors. So it's super important that you can see that PGA coaches are not only there for their golf swing or for their driving range, it is also to get them in the right mental mode. I joke sometimes that we turn into therapists, and we are happy to do so because golf is more mental than physical in most cases. So it is awesome to see your chat with Joe. It's great to see that PGA coach representation, and I'm sure that she's feeling pretty ready for this championship this weekend.
Yeah, and now you kind of can see Lexi moving through the bag a little bit, and she still has that band on her leg, so I don't know if that's just still being used as a stretching, but it's probably more of like a marker for making sure that she's making a good move, right? And so it wouldn't surprise me if she left that on for most of the range session. So the thing to focus on here with Lexi, or something you can take away from her swing, is she swings at a nice tempo. Like, it's never really too rushed. You know, when Lexi kind of gets out of sync, she rushes through her swing, you know, a lot, and you can kind of see her try to save. You might see that today if she gets off range a little bit. She tries to save the shots a little bit with her follow through. But you saw right there, great finish through the ball, right? And she abbreviated her follow through a little bit, but her belly button and her belt buckle were pointed at the target, so she knows, hey, I made a full turn, I made a full finish, and that shot was pretty good. So I'm going to keep trying here.
All right, we're going to take the next 30 seconds just to take in the sights of the live driving range coverage right now. And then soon we'll be taking a look at Yealimi Noh, who just won her first LPGA Tour event this season. But let's just take a look at what's going on the driving range.
Copy. Ryan just put his earbud in if you want to repeat. Yes, he does.
All right. Well, I have greatly enjoyed my time here on the driving range at the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. I'm actually headed to featured group coverage, so please be sure to tune in there as well. But I'm going to toss it over to Ryan to take you guys home and finish up this amazing coverage.
Thank you, Abby. Yeah, and really excited to kind of bring us home here on the range ahead of the during the first round of the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. And yeah, we're going to head over to Yealimi Noh at some point here, and she's playing with Lexi Thompson and Yuka Saso today at 1:55 p.m. So, you know, thinking about all-star pairing here, Lexi Thompson and Yuka Saso and Yealimi Noh are a really good pairing, or I'm sorry, starting groupings. And you know, Yealimi's swing. Abby mentioned earlier that she's won for the first time on the LPGA Tour, and getting a little bit of confidence. So it wouldn't surprise me if she's, you know, a factor this week, because she's kind of got the monkey off her back now. She's played for the first time, or won for the first time on the LPGA Tour, and that's a big step for players. And you know, Yealimi's played on Junior Ryder Cup teams before. She's won the Junior PGA Championship, so she's got a little bit of that PGA experience, so to speak. So the next logical step for her would be, you know, to compete and maybe hopefully win a women's PGA championship. So, you know, we're watching here with a little bit of a longer club, and you know, the grip's good. And again, you see the takeaway, and that's the most important part of a driver swing, just like it is with every other club, is making sure that your takeaway is solid, right? And your hands are in a good spot to start the club on the backswing, right? And you know, we're taking a look at her speed, and she's got a 238 carry, 152 ball speed, launch of 12 degrees and 80 feet. So I think that and you can see there, you know, the ball flight is pretty ideal for a field's range, and especially, you know, that first hole is a par 5 and it's a little bit of a dogleg, right? So she's probably trying to visualize, what does my first tee shot look like? And I think, you know, as you end your range sessions, it's important to think about, what is my swing going to look like on the golf course? Am I going to be able to, you know, compete with this swing? Am I going to be able to, is the shot shape right? So I like that she's maybe trying to hit a shot that she'll probably try to hit on the first hole here in a little bit, you know, when she tees off with Yuka and Lexi. And yeah, you know, something I've always admired about Yealimi's swing is that, you know, it's never, we've talked a lot about this today, the tempo, right? It's very rhythmic. There's not a lot of rush to it. Sometimes, you know, when you're trying to hit the ball further, and you know, she's going to be playing with Lexi and Yuka today, and those are two of the longer hitters out here on at the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. And so she knows that I probably can't hit the same distance as those players, right? But I'm going to play my own game, and you know, I talked about this earlier, but it's important when you're playing with your friends and they might hit a little bit further than you, and they might, you know, elbow you a little bit. It's important to stay within yourself, right? And focus on your strengths of your game. And maybe it's not distance, and maybe it's more shot making and iron play and short game. And it's important to make sure that you're staying within yourself. And I think Yealimi, you know, getting that first win monkey off her back earlier this year, probably feels like she can compete with someone like a Lexi Thompson and a Yuka Saso, right? She's right there. I've won on tour now, and I know what to do, what it takes to get the job done. And so, super excited to see how she does at the 155 slot.